Hey guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. How's it going today? So when you're seeing this video, I'll be in France playing in the French Cup. I might actually have finished my game by now. And if it's a miniature, I'll bring it to the channel in the future. So as you all know, I'm asking everyone if they want to post in the commentary their favorite opening or a line they would like to see in a miniature game. Now, one of you guys asked for a King's Indian game, King's Indian defense game. So I checked my file of miniature games recent in tournaments, and I found this game between Gioseffi Maximiliano from Italy with the white pieces and Valerio Carnicelli, also from Italy, with the black pieces. Carnicelli is a young FIDE master, 24 years old, also a coach on Livshitz. That's where I got his picture from. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a picture of Gioseffi. He is rated 2017, which puts him in the category of a strong club player, but not international title leveled capacity. However, as we'll see in this game, he played quite well. Now, the King's Indian defense, before we go into the game, is a very tricky defense. It's ideal to play for a win with black. There are no paths for white to get an easy draw. And of course, players such as Kasparov or Fischer, I mean, they use the King's Indian to make their money, to become excellent top-rated players. They had to fight for wins years ago with the black pieces. Nowadays, in closed tournaments, players are normally content to get a draw with black at the highest level. So the King's Indian has gradually disappeared from top-level player. But at club level, it's one of the most played defenses. I have it in my own repertoire, and I bring it to the table every now and then. I mix it up. I don't always play the King's Indian, but I enjoy playing it from time to time against certain opponents. And there are still top-level players who play the King's Indian regularly. For example, Dinglien used to play it a lot. Rajapov, he has it in his repertoire. Nakamura, many other players. But it's a tricky one. You can easily get crushed. But then again, if the circumstances go right for you, one weak move by white can turn the tables and give you the chance to win. Let's check the game. So, Gioseffi played d4. Carnicelli played knight f6 and g6, and now we have the King's Indian. And we're going to put the main position on the board. This would be the base position for the opening. Black has allowed white to construct a very strong pawn center, which can be reinforced with f3 or f4. Or white can just play for normal development with knight to f3, bishop to e2. There are many different lines for white in this position. But black always plays the same structure on the first 5 or 6 moves. That also allows you to play the King's Indian against d4, c4, and knight f3. So it's a universal weapon against everything except for e4. You can play the Perk defense with e4, which is very similar, but not the King's Indian. Gioseffi played h3, which in principle prevents bishop to g4 if white decides to develop the knight, but it also has another idea in mind, to put the bishop on e3 and prevent knight to g4, and in some cases to go for g4 in the opening, an aggressive line. Castle, bishop to e3. Personally, against these lines where white plays g4, I don't like playing e5, which is a move that Carnicelli uses. I know it's perfectly okay, theoretical, but this position after g4 I think is slightly better for white. I don't enjoy playing this with black. So if I face an opponent who is an expert in this line with white, I won't play the King's Indian. I'll go for another defense. When I do face this line, I normally don't play e5 and I go for lines such as c5 or other types of lines like knight to c6, other variations. In any case, Valerio played e5, d5 closing the center, knight to a6 heading to c5, and g4. And after knight to c5, which attacks the pawn on e4, white plays f3. Now, as you can see, white has a very strong pawn center and king side, giving white a big space advantage. And if black allows on the second move for white to play b4, he'll kick his knight also out of c5. So therefore, black goes a5. That's the standard move in the King's Indian, securing the knight on c5. Now you might wonder, why doesn't white capture the knight and double pawns? Well, it's optional. You can do it. In fact, during the game, there will be one moment where it's actually a very good move, but normally it's not very good because the bishop on e3 is a very important bishop for white. It controls all the dark squares around the pawn structure. And if white gives it away for nothing, it's not a good idea. Black will then play knight to e8 and knight to d6, blocking the passed pawn, and then activate the bishop on the dark squares with a very nice position. So Gioseffi plays correctly queen to d2. And of course, we can't play on the queen side. And on the king side, organizing f5 is difficult and dangerous because white will capture with the g-pawn and open up the file for the king. It does seem that white is entertaining the idea of going on the queen side for the castling. So Carnicelli correctly plays c6. And of course, if white captures on c6 and long castles attacking the pawn on d6 and also threatening bishop takes c5, black will go knight to b7 and then play bishop to e6 and queen to c7, and his pieces start to come out. This was still an interesting idea for white, but Gioseffi prefers knight g to e2. Now he's threatening knight to g3, castle, and then h4, h5, bishop to h6 with a very, very strong attack. So black has to hit, and he has to hit hard. And Carnicelli hits with b5. And this is actually a pawn sacrifice. For example, if pawn takes pawn in the center, capture outside, capture towards the center, pawn takes pawn, and now e4 is the move that will unbalance the situation, threaten a check on d3, and more importantly, open up the bishop on the diagonal. So Gioseffi correctly captures on c6, Carnicelli captures on c4, threatening the check, and this is the key position of the game, in my opinion. At least the first key position. Gioseffi made a mistake here. He played knight to c1, no doubt trying to control the check on d3, and also in similar positions, white can play knight to c1 and knight to d3 or b3. Also, he's trying to get the pawn back with c4. Now, if he's able to achieve all of that, his position will be fantastic. But it's not easy. And for the moment, he is uncoordinating his pieces. What he could have done and should have done is to change gears, understand that the position has changed, and now bishop takes c5 was a good move. Pawn takes c5, exchange queens, so we reduce the attacking options, and play g5 hitting the knight. Now the idea of hitting the knight is that when the knight moves away, we are able to put our knight on d5, follow up with knight to c3, bishop takes c4, and hopefully the pawn on c6 could still be useful in the attack. Now the computer here gives an advantage of nearly +2 for white, so a decisive advantage. I'm completely sure that Carnicelli would have found a way to keep complicating the game. Maybe knight f4, maybe bishop to e6, who knows. But objectively, white is much better in this position. But chess is difficult, and Carnicelli didn't see this move or didn't appreciate the strength of the move, and he played knight to c1. And now Carnicelli plays bishop to e6, defending the pawn. h4, queen to c7, trying to round up this pawn here. And of course, Gioseffi had prepared in this position knight to d5, with the idea that if black captures the pawn, he'll lose his queen after knight to e7 check. But Carnicelli knocks off the knight, allowing, of course, these pawns to be winning pawns, but he gets a chance to play e4, opening up the game for the bishop on g7 and highlighting that white's king in the center could be in big danger. Notice that white can't play f4 because of knight to g4. If white could have played f4, things would be different, but he can't. And this sort of position is just dead lost. I mean, everything is working for black now. Gioseffi, already under pressure, plays g5. Knight to h5. Now this square is also weak. And bishop takes c4. But black goes pawn takes pawn. Now black is threatening rook a d8, rook a b8, or rook f e8. All very strong moves. And here we can see the uncoordinated characteristics of the position of white. Things have gone very wrong for him. He does have a very strong passed pawn on c6, but in the middle game, that might not be enough. Now, according to the computer, knight to d3 was the best move. Carnicelli would play knight to e4, and the game is very complex, and anything can happen here. But I think that black has the upper hand. Instead of that, Gioseffi played castle, and now he's going to lose because of a direct attack. Queen to c8, fantastic move, transferring the queen to the king side. Check, check, and now we don't even have to capture the bishop, we just play bishop to e5. And here, Gioseffi decided to resign. He's getting under huge attack here, and one line could be knight to g1, and here we can win. There's several ways to win, but the cleanest and fastest is knight to e2, double check, bishop to g3, bishop to rook to e1, and queen to e4. I'm leaving this position on the board because this gives us a sense of what can happen when you play the King's Indian. You can get crushed in the middle game if you play badly. However, if your opponent makes one or two mistakes and allows you to open up the game, things like this can happen. And this is why a lot of players enjoy playing the King's Indian, especially at club level and low FIDE master, international master level, because these things happen a lot and it gives for very interesting and very enjoying, exciting games. So I hope you enjoyed this game. I was very excited to see this game, and I've added it to my King's Indian model games file. I just hope that you enjoyed it, that you had fun watching the game, and we'll see you soon on the boards. I'll be playing an international event in April. I'll publicize this on the channel, and hopefully if any of you guys are in the same vicinity in Menorca in April in the Chess Open, we'll see each other there and we can say hello. Have fun.